There have been many times over the years that I have, quote unquote, quit making comics. Like, I'm done. I'm not doing it again. I can't stand it. And I give up. But I always come back. I've tried to just write, but I always miss the art. I miss the comics. So I just had to accept that this is what I like to do. It helps me smile every day. It helps me feel like a human being. It helps me make sense of the world around me. Even if I'm not making a lot from it, I'm getting a lot from it.
Hello, Clever Habits Tribe, and welcome back to season 7. This is episode 3, and today I'm here with African American artist and cartoonist Khalid Birdsong. This is going to be crazy. He lived in a tiny, tiny town in Japan, the only foreigner, the only Black person, and he survived. So this is going to be a crazy story. Hey, Khalid, thank you so much for accepting my invitation on short notice. I know you had to stay up late for this. I had to get up early, so this is going to be a good one. I'm all adrenaline this morning.
Yeah, I'm ready. This is great. This is exciting. Thank you for having
Before we get started, let's just give some context. We're talking about a small town in Osaka Prefecture, which is about 300 miles from Tokyo. You were there back in 2010, was it?
Let's see. I went there 2003, and I was there until 2005. And the little town is in between Osaka and Kyoto. And it was a small town just by the mountains. Yeah, I guess it was close enough to everything. I could get into Osaka in about 30 to 40 minutes by train. But yeah, it was definitely a small town.
We're talking 2003. This is cell phones, but this is more like flip phones before WhatsApp and Skype and all that.
That's right. It was just before Skype. Well, funny enough, it would have been so much easier with Skype, but it was right before all of that. But yeah, exactly. That was the time. And so the kind of the end of really feeling isolated overseas.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you because you went as an English learning friend. Why did you decide to do that? What was the reasoning behind being an English teacher? Like, okay, but then I want to be English teacher in Japan. What?
Really, originally I wanted to just visit Japan, like many people just wanted to go. And as an artist, I wanted to kind of get inspired by the art and the culture and of course the comics, the manga that's there. I was a teacher already. I was teaching art in Florida to elementary school students. My friend told me about the JET program, Japanese Exchange and Teaching Program, and that you could apply to it. Maybe you will be chosen and they will have you there. You'll be an assistant. You'll be in the classroom with a Japanese person who's teaching English, and then you can help pronunciation and all that. So I applied, and it took almost a year, the whole process. I got in, and it's been a great adventure ever since. Yeah, I've been teaching for several years before that. And I don't know, I just had a feeling, I wasn't married or anything at that time. And I had a feeling that this was the last chance I would probably get to do something like that, to go off and make a crazy choice of going to a whole other country by myself. Especially when I was accepted and I got the job, I was like, well, I can't say no now. I've gotta, even if it's scary and a huge change, I've got to do it. And I'm happy that I did, but everybody's experience is different. Met a lot of people that came with me there, and while I was there, people from other countries living in Japan, and every story is full of adventure, and sometimes it's not positive. So I feel happy that I had pretty good experience there.
Yeah, but it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. I really like your comic strip that you had about Japan, Fried Chicken and Sushi, where you did explain there is an adjustment period and there are a lot of microaggressions when you're different. So I'm imagining you're at least 6 feet tall, you're a brown person, and the small town, they're like, what?
Even just going to the grocery store and having some of my students follow me around to see what I'm putting in my cart, and oh, he's eating steak. Oh, he's getting meat. Oh, he's getting this. He's getting cookies. Oh, look what it's such an amazing thing. It's one of those weird things, at least in the town I was in. I felt like a celebrity in some ways because if people see you, they know why you're there. You're probably the English teacher at the school. There was one before you and one before that. And so, oh, this is the new one. Okay, this is the guy that's here to teach everybody English. And so they all know who you are. You're looked at and stared at. And sometimes it's nerve wracking thinking about going outside because you just know that people are going to notice you and you can't hide. You can't really hide. So you have to kind of get okay with being gracious and smiling and bowing to people and everything. A lot of people will ignore you, but sometimes they won't. People sometimes will stare and you just have to kind of deal with it. Still think it was a good experience still working in my school, as the only American and Black American. And I didn't speak Japanese. That was another thing. I moved there and I started studying a little bit before I left, but I didn't know what was going on. I did not know what was going on most of the time. And so I had to get really good at watching and listening and just kind of paying attention and maybe just following along, even though I don't know what's going to happen. There was a lot of getting used to uncertainty, I guess. I'm just like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know where we're going or what this is, but I will just smile and watch and be a part of it. So that was also something that I hadn't experienced to that level before. Because even if you think about the writing in Japan, it's a lot of characters. There's no way I can read this, what's written on the board. I can't read it. I can't figure it out. That was also quite a shock.
Yeah, I felt for you when I was reading the comic strip because I learned my husband's language. They have like 200 characters, but then Japanese, you need at least 2,000 to know how to read. So I was like, okay.
Yeah, most of your young life to learn how to read, say a newspaper or something. It takes a while. But I can say though, that one thing I really enjoyed about Japan is that people there, if you're a visitor, a lot of times people are very friendly and hospitable and helpful. And I really love that about it. They may be fascinated with you, but most of the time they're very friendly and kind. And so that made it a lot easier.
I love the way that you made it into a positive experience. You call it looking for the funny. A lot of people would be embittered because they're like, I can't. When you just made it into a comic strip. So how did you go from okay, I'm here. This is kind of awkward. Oh, it's kind of funny. Let me make a comic strip about it now. What was the transition there?
Well, it was funny when I was living in Japan, I didn't really make the comic strip yet. And there's so many things that happen where I would step back. Maybe I'd get a little frustrated or something like that, that happened. But then I would think about it and be like, actually, that's kind of fun. I can't believe that happened. Or these things where no one's going to believe me if I say that. And so it became more of a thing that I started to do. I'm like, what can I think about? Like, oh, well, that's funny too. And this is funny. And then it was maybe after a year or so of living there, I felt like I've got to do something with this. So what I started to do, actually, I started to write emails to my friends in America, friends and family, and just kind of explaining some of the funny things or interesting things that were going on in my life in Japan. Once I moved back to America, that became a thing that I could pull from for ideas, and then started thinking that, it doesn't have to just be writing. I didn't really make comic strips that were humorous, but I said, maybe I can learn how to do comic strips because this could work in a humor format. So it just kind of grew from the observations to the, I need to do something about this because I'm sure there are people out there that are interested in what it would be like to not only visit Japan, but live there. Comic strips and web comics were becoming popular. And I felt like, oh, this could be an interesting thing to do, to try to do this. I put it together and it was, I think, pretty successful. And I had a good run on my own website for 4 years of doing it. And then I started going back to Japan. I would take notes when I would go back and visit. Then, okay, I have to write this down, or something funny happened and I'd write it or write it in my phone. And so I would come up with new story ideas from just visiting. And then it became like a muscle, right? Of now I'm practicing looking for something interesting, writing it down, turn it into humor, but hopefully not make fun of Japanese people, but make it clear that this is part of what it is if you're a foreigner in Japan. And I've been doing that ever since. And that's one hard thing about doing the fried chicken and sushi strips, that line, right? That line, because my wife is Japanese and I didn't want to, and my family there is Japanese. So I just didn't want to disrespect, but there are some frustrations. There are things that it would make me upset. But honestly, there are things about America that make me upset. So I had to be real about that. That, I can talk about my own country, then I can talk about Japan and still love it. Still love the country, love the people and the culture, but there are things that are frustrating. But that did make it hard in the comic of just like, is this going too far? Or I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings or give them the wrong idea. So it was always a fear. It's fun to tell these stories, but I have to be careful.
And you're being modest because, of course, this did run for 4 years. I read all 514 yesterday because it was something like, I gotta see how this ends. But you also went into syndication and also compiled them into two books. So how did you decide to make those two decisions?
I heard that GoComics.com, which is owned by Andrews McMeel, and they publish some of the big comics that have been in the newspaper, like Garfield and Calvin Hobbes and Pearls Before Swine, like a lot of comic strips. And I had heard that, oh, well, even if you're not in the newspaper, they could carry your comic on their Go Comics site. That's something that they can do. You can get syndicated online and you'll get, more readers to what you're doing. And all you have to do is submit. So I said, okay, I'll submit Fried Chicken and Sushi. So after about 4 years, I was like, I've been doing this comic strip 4 years, posting 2 times a week, and I never missed an update. It was every week for 4 years. So hopefully that will impress a syndicate. And that will impress people. And they say, okay, this guy knows how to be consistent and how to work. I submitted, several strips that I thought were funny from Fried Chicken and Sushi, but I was a little bit worried that maybe it would be too controversial because I'm thinking, well, maybe this is going to be like submitting to a newspaper type comic strip. So I said, let me draw a few with the characters as kids. Take Carl, who's based on me, and turn him into a kid, and turn Mai, who's based on my wife, into a kid. Let's see what happens if I do that. I'll just do a few strips, just for the fun of it. So I did it. I submitted, and then a month later, one of the editors got back to me, and she was interested, but interested in the kid strips because it was cute and fun. And so I was kind of like, oh, okay. So that's how that came about, that there was something there. And so that's where I went with it. So I turned it into Little Fried Chicken and Sushi for the Go Comics version. And for a while, I did both. A short time, but I did both for a little bit. And then I stopped the regular Fried Chicken and Sushi and then just continue with the Little Fried Chicken and Sushi on Go Comics.
Which would you say, I guess both of them have been fulfilling, but which one would you say was the more popular one?
I would say the original Fried Chicken and Sushi was the more popular. Someone in their 20s is living in Japan, and then it was dating and all of this. And I think that it was also a good time in the internet kind of history of, this is the time where people are reading only online. Social media was just kind of getting started. And so people had to go directly to the website. And I think that's what people wanted to read. But I think that the kid one was a lot of fun to write, but kids are not online reading comics, and maybe more so now, but like you have Webtoon and you have other things now, but then you just didn't have it so much. And so I think that the regular Fried Chicken and Sushi was more popular, but I can say that it became harder to create because at that point I wasn't living in Japan anymore. So yes, I could go back and visit and come up with ideas, but still it's just started to feel more forced. Like I'm trying to create something and I'm still talking about a time when I'm single and it's not the same place that I am in life. So it became difficult to me to feel like this is authentic. So it was another reason why I kind of let it go and just focused on the kid strip.
Yeah, and I like the way that you handled it because you did end it on a high note. But I think a lot of creators think, this is my best thing. I have to keep it going until people tell me to stop. It's like, no, you decide.
Yeah, you're right. And I was thinking about, well, I could do a thing where they move to America and it could still be fried chicken and sushi. It's just the opposite. But it just didn't quite catch for me. Of course, I have some regrets. I wish that I would have tried that or tried to keep it going, but now I think it's probably the right choice to just end it. After that, after finishing that, then I felt like, okay, well, now it's the time to make books and to do that. And it was a great time because you could kind of publish yourself pretty easily. So I put out 2 books. But living in Japan ain't easy. And so that is more the first 2 years actually mainly done when I was drawing on paper and with pen. And then the living in Japan still ain't easy is part 2, and that's where I transitioned more to digital art. And I was working on a Wacom tablet and working in Clip Studio Paint and drawing just completely on the computer, which made things faster and easier. It's kind of fun for me to look and see the transition of where I went from, yeah, the traditional way to the digital way. But yeah, I sell those on Amazon, and it's been really fun to be able to keep it alive that way. And I can just keep selling those forever. So it's good that there were enough comic strips to make books and make 2 collections. And another great part about having the books is having my daughter grow up with Fried Chicken and Sushi, and then kind of seeing, even though it's not the exact story of meeting my wife and that whole experience, it is kind of a story of her parents and my experience there. And then she's a huge fan and reads the books and has read them over and over and loves them. And so just for that, it was worth it. Just the fact that my child and hopefully my family that comes after this will have something from this connection. It's a part of our history now. Future generations hopefully will be able to read these books and say, whoa, we had a family member that moved to Japan and they made comics. That's pretty great. Hopefully it will inspire them and teach them a little bit about their family history.
People don't start because of these reasons you're mentioning. I think it would be like maybe 3 reasons. It would be either the uncertainty of where is this going to go, having to be consistent, and they think they also have to quit their job to start working on this. So, what would be your answer to those 3 concerns?
This was also a challenge for me because when I started Fried Chicken and Sushi, my daughter was born, and people told me, "Don't start something like this. Are you crazy? You have a child, you'll never have time for this." And I wanted to, number one, have something just for me to do 2 times a week. I can't do 7 times. I can't, I can't do every single day like in the newspaper. That would be, I would probably kill myself. But 2 times a week, I can do it. It's basically finding a way to manage it. Couldn't color every single strip. So I'm like, it's got to be in black and white most of the time. Maybe once or twice a month, I can put something in color and make it a little longer, like a Sunday comic strip, but I can't do that every time. So it's going to be in black and white. So I set all of these kind of parameters to keep it so that I could produce it and not burn out. I got to say, it was really great to have it because, yes, it was something that I got to pull away and just do for myself. And it has a certain amount of time. Each strip would take about 2 hours to pencil and draw and do all of that. And so I knew that I have a set amount of time to sit down. I would then get up early in the morning at like 4:30 in the morning because I was already not getting a lot of sleep. As a parent, it is difficult to get up in the morning early. But I think if you have a busy life, if you get up, it's almost like you're giving yourself more time. I always felt like I was cheating or something because I felt like, wow, by the time I go to work, I've already drawn a comic strip. That's amazing. And then by the time I get home from work at the end of the day, I'm done. I can spend time with family. I can relax and do all of that because I worked on stuff for myself first thing in the morning and it's done. So that's kind of how I did it for all those years, getting up early, working on the comic strip, going to work, spending time with family. I would say that's the way to do it. You have to have something that you want to work on. And I felt like this strip was something that was fun. It was something I could express. After the first year working on it, I would say I got my voice. Then I started having a lot of fun. It was like, I know the humor of this strip now. I know kind of how to write humor. I know where I want to go with it and how the story's going to be. So a lot of things came together. And maybe that doesn't always happen, right? Where people might give up because it doesn't happen. But for this one, it did. So I just kept going with it. And yeah, it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I would say so. It's just amazing because you have this comic strip that went, I guess, viral in its day, and then you have these 2 books that you can sell again as a product. But that doesn't mean that you're done. As an art teacher, as your 9 to 5, and you have still the cartooning site on Substack, Patreon, and then also some other gigs that you do. So I would like to see if you can break down what is it like to be an artist in the 21st century where there's social media now, there's AI, there's a lot that you're competing with, but the human touch still matters.
It does. Yeah, I would say one of the things I've learned recently, like I was saying when Fried Chicken and Sushi started, the big thing was going to a website. Of course, that's not the way it is anymore. And then social media was the place. You got to put it on social media. And then social media changed, and it's difficult to get your work seen through algorithms. So now it is back to email and sending it to your email. Email just never seems to go away. This is the only way to really get fans, is to have an email list. You have an email list and people can sign up, and then they can get your work when it comes out. And so Substack is a great place for that, where it's pretty much free and it's easy to kind of set up, and people can even pay you. And so they can help support you. So I feel like, okay, it's back to 20 years ago again. That's where I am right now with it. I'm just kind of sending out comics about experiences in Japan when I go to visit, sending out comics or new characters that I'm trying out, sending articles about creativity or giving you some inspiration for drawing. So it's a mix of things, but I get to do a mix of things. I get to do a lot of different stuff. I think that it's really been fun, but it's delivered straight to email. And that's the key.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of those newsletters where it feels almost like we're reading the person's journal or their diary. It's interesting to see your process coming out. And you have over 1,000 subscribers there. So how long did it take to build? And how often do you send them an email?
Let's see. So I've been on Substack for about 2 years, a little over 2 years now. And I think I came in with about 300 subscribers from the original Fried Chicken and Sushi, and I would still send out things here and there to them. So I imported them over, and then it's grown from there. And then I try to post 3 to 4 times per month. So not exactly once a week. I'd love to do just one post a week, but from doing a comic strip for many, many years, like almost like over 10 years of different types of fried chicken and sushi strips, and then having to post and never take a break, I was exhausted. If I want to take another week to make this comic better that I'm going to share, or to write a little bit more, yeah, I can do that. I don't have to post. I don't have to be chained to this same schedule like when I was doing comic strips. So I'm enjoying that. I think that's the key, just kind of doing what's right for you. And then I'm telling you, that email list, that's the way to go.
Don't write off email. I hadn't written it off, but I didn't realize how important it is. I have to look into that.
It is. And then when you have that, you can sell your books to people that are on there. If you're doing a Kickstarter to raise money, if you got some kind of cause going on, like you have direct people that are there that like what you do, and you go directly to them. I believe in that. And so I'm just going to keep doing this. And it's a good way to work out ideas if I'm not sure about something, and then I can see, okay, how many people responded to this, or how did this work? And so having people that already kind of like what I'm doing following me, it just helps. It really helps to have some actual readers or fans that want to see it. I don't have to worry about, am I, overstepping my bounds? If they don't want it, they can unsubscribe. It's great to have people to send it to. So I definitely would encourage people to start an email list.
We don't want to get into your personal business of like numbers, but what would you say is the percentage of income from 9 to 5 versus gig work?
Oh, I mean, I would say predominantly the 9 to 5 is pretty much most of it. Yeah, I mean, even up to 90% of it. That's the thing where I am right now. I would love for it to be much more coming in, but not there quite yet. So I think that being able to balance a day job and what you do is crucial, and just being able to manage your energy. making sure you're taking breaks and resting. And now that I know what it's like to really overwork, I can start feeling like, oh, I need to pull back a little bit because this could be bad. And it depends on the seasons too. I mean, fortunately, as a teacher, I do get summers off. And so the summer is a time, and it used to be when I was doing Fried Chicken and Sushi, was the time to draw more comics. So I knew I got 2 months in the summer where I can be a full-time cartoonist, and then I will draw more comics and then create a buffer and have extra comics so that when I need a vacation or if I get sick, I have the extra comics that I can use. That's just a part of how it goes. I think it's changing. I think that people used to think that, well, if you can't make enough money to quit your job, then it's not worth it. But yeah, it's always down to what are you doing it for? There have been many times over the years that I have quote unquote quit making comics. Like, I'm done. I'm not doing it again. I can't stand it. And I give up. But I think I just can't. I mean, maybe something's wrong with me or I just really have a passion for it, but I always come back. I've tried to just write and say, well, I mean, comics is a waste. Art is not really doing anything. So I'm just going to write articles and do that. And I've worked as a copywriter before. I've done writing and it's really great, but I always miss the art. I miss the comics. I've come to a point now where I'm like, just embrace it. Just embrace that this is what I like to do. I like to write and I like to draw. And if I can combine them, and being a cartoonist is that. A cartoonist is someone who writes and draws. The illustrator usually draws the pictures, someone else writes, but a cartoonist usually does both. So I just had to accept that this is what I like to do. It helps me smile every day. It helps me feel like a human being. It helps me make sense of the world around me, especially if I'm overseas in another country or in Japan. Like it helps me to be able to process through my drawings and my comics. Even if I'm not making a lot from it, I'm getting a lot from it.
And that is a great place to end this. So, Khalid, please tell us where we can find you online and where we can buy those books.
Going to my Substack, khalidbirdsong.substack.com is great. And it's called A New Creative Life. And so that's the main thing that I'm working on. But if you want to get my books, they're on Amazon. You can put Khalid Birdsong in there. You can put Living in Japan Ain't Easy in there, and you can find the books. I do have an author page. So just Khalid Birdsong is great. And also I have a website, friedchickenandsushi.com, where all the old strips are. And I still post a lot of my new articles and comics there too. It's kind of like a hub. So friedchickenandsushi.com is a good place to go.
Yeah, I was binge reading there yesterday.
Yep. Thank you very much. That was the fun part. I wanted to do humor with the strip, but I also wanted to not just make it about comedy. I wanted to make it about a story that you wanted to continue reading. And that's something I didn't see as much then. It was just like, you're wondering what's going to happen. It's not just a joke a day type of strip. There's something that's going on, developing, and you want to tune in to read it. And I think that worked. And so I was happy about that. Like with his friend Jay, is he going to ever go to Japan or move to Japan? And then what's going to happen here? So there were other parts I wanted to put in there. And so I was really happy that it worked out that way, because I felt like it became more than just being funny.
Yeah, and the thing that I really appreciated, besides the great storyline, was that you had those two stories in parallel. There's Koro, who's dealing with microaggressions in Japan, and Jay, who's dealing with it back home in Atlanta. But it was always in a way that's like, yep, this is reality, but I'm not going to become bitter from this. It's a very good storyline. So you can tell you thought it through.
Thanks. All right. I appreciate it.
Clever Hybrid Strip, thank you so much for staying with us then. If you want to hear Khalid's information again, I'm going to put it down in the comments and the description as usual. This is GabyV signing off, and we'll see you in the next one.